trovare con il numero 9 Attila Tassi. Attila Tassi è un pilota ungherese che questa mattina ha staccato il terzo tempo assoluto in 1.58.459, guida una Honda Type R FK7. Questa è la vettura con la quale Tassi è riuscito a conquistare il terzo tempo assoluto. Accanto a lui con il numero 4 parte... Con il numero 4 vi dicevo, scusate, accanto a lui con il numero 99 parte Joss File, pilota inglese, Honda Civic Type, la sua vettura preparata dalla Hell Energy Racing. Andiamo dalla seconda alla terza fila per provare con il numero 88 Maxime Potti, pilota belga su una Volkswagen Golf GT. Potti ha realizzato il tempo di 1.58.863. Potti è preparato dalla Komoto U Racing. Terza fila che si chiude con il numero 6 e il numero 62. 62 si tratta di Dušan Borkovic è un pilota della Hyundai i30N, un pilota della Target Competition. Borkovic ha fatto registrare il tempo di 1.58.902. Dalla terza alla quarta fila per trovare il numero 42 si tratta di Stefano Comini. Lo svizzero viene a Monza per correre sulla pista che praticamente gli ha dato i natali, perché è nato qui su questa pista con il trofeo cadetti, la Formula Monza, sono stati quelli i suoi primi passi. Qui guida una Honda Civic Type R preparata dalla Autodis Racing numero 42 ed è schierata lì in quarta fila. A chiudere la quarta fila numero 11 Rens Reno Möller. Accanto a lui, a chiusura della terza fila, troviamo con il numero 23 Francisco Abreu, portoghese, una Peugeot 308, la vettura preparata dalla Sport NU. Abreu ha staccato il tempo di 1.59.468. Dalla quinta alla sesta fila per trovare con il numero 44 Salvatore Tavano. Salvatore Tavano è un pilota della scuderia Girasole, corre su una Fiat Cupra e ha staccato il tempo di 1.59.626. Accanto a lui l'autore del 12° tempo.
Hello and welcome to Northern Italy. It's the Temple of Speed at Monza that hosts the penultimate race weekend of the 2018 TCR Europe Series. And you have a slightly croaky Mark James in the commentary box ahead of this weekend's two races. One today, one tomorrow. In fact, today's is the last on the card here at Monza. Tomorrow's is the first for Sunday. It's a very muggy day. You'll see there 27 degrees air temperature. It's been slightly higher, but the humidity makes it feel quite sticky, quite muggy in the air. And so the next 23 minutes or so, plus one lap, will be quite hard going in those cars, I suspect. We're at quite an interesting stage in the championship. We still have two race meetings, including this one to go. We have 28 cars entered, the largest entry list of the season so far. And there is a slight question mark over one of those cars, which once the grid clears, I'll have more of an idea. We have, as well as the 28 entries, 8 car brands represented. So you'll see amongst the entry list that we have one Alfa Romeo, that of Fabrizio Giovanardi, and 2 Subarus. They've been missing from the entry list for a while, but the top run, 2 Subarus, Cosimo Barberini in the number 3 car, and then in the number 77 car, Roberto Russo, brother of Renato, who's the team boss at Top Run, who build the cars. And that's the slight question mark. I'll explain more in a moment once the grid clears. But that is the car on pole position. There is the man, Jean-Carl Venet, currently out of touch, you have to say, with the championship leaders in the Drivers' Championship. But he definitely knew that Monza would be a happy hunting ground for the Audi RS3 LMS, and that's what's been proven this weekend so far. Quickest in free practice 1 yesterday, second quickest in free practice 2, and then quickest in qualifying to take the 5 bonus points. And that is the man who starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. And for Mikel Azcona of Spain in the Cupra, not only did he get 4 bonus points for being second quickest, but he has now retaken the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Came here to Italy 2 points behind Dusan Borkovic, and that position has been completely reversed, and so it is now Azcona who leads the Drivers' Championship. We'll get confirmation of that in a moment, but it's now 2 points to the good for Azcona. Attila Tashi, who is very much still in the scrap. He's still 4th in the championship, just ahead of Jean Calvinet. 3 points separate the two. And Attila Tashi on the second row of the grid, deep in concentration, excuse me, ahead of this first race at Monza. And alongside him on the grid is his Hell Energy Racing with KCMG teammate Josh Files. And when I spoke to Attila earlier, he was full of praise for Josh. He looked at Josh's data after free practice, didn't really seem to be going anywhere, and was able to take a lot from Josh. And then in qualifying, Josh, who's really out of the fight for the title, gave his teammate a tow. The long start-finish straight here. The Honda's bouncing off the rev limiter as they head down to the first chicane. But it was the aerodynamic tow from his teammate, Josh Files, that gave Attila Tashi 3rd place on the grid. So this is row 3 then. Maxime Potti. A little wave, thumbs up from Maxime in the Volkswagen Golf. And alongside Maxime on the grid is the man who came here to Italy as championship leader, Dusan Borkovic, in the first of the target competition Hyundais. And Dusan, like Azcona, will be hoping to take as many points as possible away from Italy, because remember, the final round in late October is at Barcelona, and so Azcona will be on home grounds. Stefano Camini on row 4 of the grid in the number 42 Honda. Alongside Camini will be Jens Renault Moller in yet another Honda, as we confirm the starting grid for you. Pole position, top left then. Jean Calvinet, Mikel Azcona, row 1. Attila Tashi and Josh Files, row 2. Maxime Potti and Dusan Borkovic, row 3. Camini, you just saw ahead of Jens, alongside Jens Renault Muller on row 4 of the grid. Row 5, once we see it, is Benjamin Lessen, who was a very late entry here. A switch in WTCR. Benjamin Lessen was in WTCR. Has been replaced for the Chinese round, and so a very late entry here in Monza. Francisco Abreu in the Peugeot. He'll be on pole for race 2. Behind them, Tavano and Terting. Sapag. We'll talk about Jose Manuel Sapag from Argentina, I suspect, as the race goes on, alongside Nicola Baldan. Several Italian drivers having entered here at Monza as pretty much a one-off. Danny Cruz alongside Danny Nage. We'll talk about Nage, I suspect, on the green flag lap. Stian Paulsen alongside Chris Richard. And then Ollie Taylor from the UK alongside Fabrizio Giovanardi, a classic name of touring cars of old. Barberini alongside Davidovski. Stefanovski alongside Martin Rieber. Capellari and Altoe. And then Reese Barr. And you did see on the grid confirmation that Roberto Russo in the second of the Subarus was on the grid, and indeed he is at the back of the grid. There was a slight question mark, a very last-minute hiccup with Roberto's license, of all things, meant that he didn't start qualifying. And so, because obviously he didn't take part in qualifying, there was a slight question mark, but I'm pleased to say that the blue Subaru moves away now at the start of the green flag lap. So all 28 entries are on the grid for this first race here at Monza. And I mentioned the championship battle. Borkovic losing out, qualifying in 6th, and so no bonus point for him. Danny Nage, though, just a measure of how tight things are. Nage qualified down in 16th place, and so the winner of race 1 last time out at Assen in the Netherlands, absolutely nowhere, and he will be kicking himself for that. But when I spoke to the team earlier, they were kind of shrugging their shoulders and saying, no, one of those things, you make the slightest of mistakes here at Monza, and it's punished most severely. But no blame being appointed to either driver or car. It is, as they say, one of those things. So what can Naj do here in Monza this weekend? There is Naj in the back of your shot. In the foreground, the other Mira car, that of Nicola Baldan from Italy, as Naj heads round into the Lesmo, the two right-hand corners at the furthest end of the circuit, just coming into Lesmo 2 at the moment. There is Nicola Baldan, just exiting shot now. There is Stian Paulsen, who I keep talking about. There is Ollie Taylor from TCR UK, second currently in TCR UK with one event left to go. And Ollie Taylor, the first of the TCR UK competitors to dip his toes into another TCR series, coming to have a look at TCR Europe. P8 was Taylor in free practice, won yesterday. The car having some changes made between FP1 and FP2, and the team admitting that they got things slightly wrong and so went back. But Taylor qualifying 19th, just ahead of the man you briefly saw, Fabrizio Giovanardi, in the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. Giovanardi, another one-off appearance at his home event, normally competing, of course, in WTCR. So then, around into the Parabolica they come. As we look at Jaime Puig from Cupra Racing, all eyes will be on that man, car 25, Mikel Azcona. And not only will the likes of Jaime Puig, but I suspect the eyes of Spain will be on Mikel Azcona, the youngster carrying the hopes of Cupra Racing and indeed Spain here in TCR Europe this weekend. But there is Jean-Carl Venet, desperately needs, I would have said, a victory and a podium, if not two victories here this weekend, as we look from the banking, the old part of the circuit, across to the exit of the Parabolica. And there is the blue Subaru I mentioned earlier, Roberto Russo in the 77 cars. He comes out of the Parabolica to take his place on the grid. The nerves showing ever so slightly as the cars form up onto the grid for the first of this weekend's two races. One today, one tomorrow. And who knows what will happen. One thing is almost guaranteed, and that there will be an awful lot of squeezing to get into the first corner. Here at Monza, long start-finish straight, long start-finish straight into a very tight right-left chicane at turns 1 and 2, and 28 cars will all be trying to fit into that gap in a matter of seconds. The final cars take their positions on the grid. There is the green flag, moments away then from round 11 of the TCR Europe Series 2018. We watch for the lights to go on. There they go. The revs rise, the lights go out. Watch for Venet. The two Hondas make a decent start, as does Azcona. Everybody clean away with the Subaru making up ground. Files and Tashi trying to make ground, but indeed I believe it's Azcona who's through into the lead. Azcona sensationally gets past Jean-Carl Venet. Cars, as we thought, picking their way through the chicane, some across the grass, some across the escape road, one of them being Ollie Taylor. But indeed, I think we got away with little or no contact from the chicane. But Mikel Azcona, what a sensation. We knew that the Audi would be quick, and indeed, there is Venet through into second place, having just got back past Tashi again. So it is Azcona from Venet, from Tashi and Files, then it's Potty behind in the Volkswagen, then it's Borkovic, and then Baldan, Comini, Jens Renault Moller, Danny Cruz, and that's your top 10 at the moment. Oh, that's Danny Naj off into the gravel. Can he keep going? Danny Naj in the 999 car, and a championship contender until this weekend. But is there a puncture? Is there a steering problem? The car jinking from side to side, so there is a potential problem. As we're looking at the race leader now, Mikel Azcona, with Jean-Carl Venet tucked up alongside. Down towards the Parabolica they come then for the first time. There is Comini, Baldan alongside. Oh, big lockup. And that is Benjamin Lesen in the 6:30 car. And Lesen, no idea what happened there. He completely locked up. So did he lose his brakes coming down into the right-hander, turn into the Parabolica? So bad news for Danny Nage on lap 1. Bad news for Benjamin Lesen. And the safety car is out. So at the end of just the first lap, we see the safety car going out. So let's take a breather for a moment. Let's take a quick look at the top 10 as Benjamin Lesen gets out of the Honda, wondering what on earth happened. So there is the safety car in the background. As the marshals check that he's okay, I think more upset than anything else. Mikel Azcona then leads by just over a second, just under 1.5 seconds from Jean-Carl Venet. Josh Files has got through into third, ahead of Tashi. Maxime Potti is fifth, Dusan Borkovic sixth. Seventh is Stefano Comini, eighth is Nicola Baldan. Ninth is Jens Reno Muller, and 10th is Peter Terting. Now, we've hardly mentioned Terting so far, as in come Nage and Danny Cruz there in the Cupra in the background. Now, fingers crossed, this will be a relatively short safety car interruption. Let's look back at the start. Seemed to be a clean start, but in the drag down to that chicane, it was Mikel Azcona who came out well ahead of Jean-Carl Venet. And this is the problem I was talking about. Stian Paulsen, Ollie Taylor. I'm trying to think who else. It's Stefanovski, I think, in the Honda that took to the escape road. And indeed, Venet is across the cut through as well. So a little messy, to put it mildly, but not the carnage that perhaps we were expecting and we've seen in previous races here at Monza. And that's the moment at which Danny Nage goes off through into the gravel. Now you wonder about Lesen, if we see that in a moment, he just seemed to lock up. And yet, so we're saying there was here we are, this is the bit. Lesen just locks up, there's smoke definitely coming. The front tyre has stopped rotating, and yet through the gravel and into the tyre barrier. Not a hard thump, but he'll have certainly felt it, and the damage should be repairable, ready for the second race tomorrow. And fingers crossed, as I said, that's a relatively easy recovery for the marshals. So Benjamin Lesen, one of the first casualties here at Monza, and a dejected Lesen wondering what on earth happened, stood behind the barrier. There is Danny Nage, balaclava off, helmet off, and the body language says it all. What on earth happened? There is Ben Lesen, deep in thought. But he'll be back tomorrow, all being well. The car is eminently fixable. Still waiting for any kind of reference that the safety car will be coming in this lap. The clock's still ticking down, though. 23 minutes plus 1 lap, the standard TCR Europe duration. So a DNF then for Danny Nage. You'll remember he also failed to finish the second race in Assen last time out after winning the first race. So bitter disappointment for Danny Nage and the Mira team, whereas Nicola Baldan in the second team car is still 8th at the moment. Safety car will be coming in this lap, which is what I've been waiting for. Salvatore Tavano, we've hardly mentioned Tavano. Salvatore Tavano in the number 44 Cupra, the matte grey car. And indeed, lights are off on the safety car. They come through the Ascari chicane, And then it's this long straight, the back straight down to the right hand of the Parabolica, which spits the cars out onto the start-finish straight. And with the safety car accelerating away to pull in, the restart is now completely in the hands of Mikel Azcona. And you wonder what is the correct strategy here. Azcona weaving from side to side, is that psychology? It was notable that Vernet, Files and Tashi were all very calm, no weaving from them. Azcona has gone though, and has he caught Vernet napping? There is a gap. So up to the start-finish line, we're racing once again. Green flags then. So Azcona, half a second now ahead of Jean-Carl Vernet. Then it's Files, Tashi, Potti, Borkovic, Comini, Nicola Baldan, Jens Renaud Muller and Peter Terting. That's your top 10. Giovanardi is up to 11th, ahead of Paulsen, Abreu, Richard, Taylor, Barberini, Martin Rieber, Altoe in the DSG car, Stefanovski, and Jose Manuel Sapag, the Argentinian I mentioned earlier, is 20th. To the Curva Grande then. And Vernet right up alongside, or just tucked in behind Mikel Azcona. And Tashi, I think, has got Potti tucked up behind him as Paulsen is attacking Nicola Baldan. Borkovic, though, desperate to get past the Volkswagen of Maxime Potti. Oh, slightly wayward across the curbs. No changes, though. Fastest lap so far is Mikel Azcona with a 2:01. Bearing in mind that qualification pace here this morning was a 1:57, 1:58. So Azcona then still leads this race from Jean-Carl Vernet, who is in very close attendance. Josh Files still third. Then a slight gap back to Tashi. And then a similar slight gap to Potti, who's got Borkovic climbing all over him. Francisco Abreu dives up the inside of Giovanardi. That's the battle for 12th place now. Terting is up into 9th. Comini has got up into 7th. And Vernet up on the inside, I believe he has. He's gone up the inside of Azcona, and Jean-Carl Vernet chooses his moment brilliantly, coming down the start-finish straight and into the chicane, having taken the lead. So Jean-Carl Vernet, having done exactly what he wanted to do. Oh, and more cars cut the corner, cut the chicane. Not allowed to take an advantage, of course, so they will be having to give the places back. Vernet having just set the quickest lap now. This is more like it, a 1:58.7. Now this is the moment. Vernet just jinks to the inside. Now whether Azcona didn't see him coming or was quite happy to let him go, I suspect the latter, because Vernet has an awful lot of points to make up on Azcona. Just cocks the inside rear wheel as he goes into the chicane. And then behind, if we can see, no, indeed we don't, several cars cutting the chicane on that one. Baldan and Abreu having cut the chicane. Giovanardi then, there is Abreu, mentioned him in the Peugeot. So, frustration for Borkovic, I suspect, still 6th behind Tashi. Potti's got past the Honda, so Maxime Potti in the Volkswagen is now up to 4th. And this is the lunge and contact between Giovanardi and Abreu. Abreu really has nowhere to go. That was a bit of a brave move from the Peugeot driver, as Baldan also went across the inside of the chicane. So our new race leader then is Jean-Carl Vernet, and we expect him to disappear off into the distance because the Audi we know is good on the long straights here at Monza. Josh Files was telling me earlier on that coming down the start-finish straight, all the Hondas are on the rev limiter pretty much now as they pass the the pit exit as Borkovic tries to go up the inside of Tashi, and indeed does it. So Borkovic takes the place. Borkovic moves up a place to 5th. Tashi drops to 6th. There are the guys from Target Competition with Adriana Borkovic closest to the camera, giving a little round of applause to hubby. But at the moment, it's Jean Calvinet in the driving seat, not pulling away that much from Mikel Azcona. Josh Files 3rd, then Maxime Potti, then Borkovic now ahead of Tashi. Behind Tashi, it's Comini, Turting, then Paulsen, and Jens Rano Muller rounds off the top 10. Mixed fortunes for Target Competition so far this weekend as 2 cars go off. One, I suspect, is in the barriers. And that was the exit to, indeed, that's Sapag, the Argentinian I mentioned, and one of the Subarus, Cosimo Barberini, in the number 3 car. So, for the second time this race, safety car is deployed. Frustration then, especially for the likes of Borkovic, who really wants to get on with the job, gets past Potti and maybe has a tilt at Files for a podium finish. Really needs the points to get back at Azcona. So the marshals quickly getting over to those 2 cars. I suspect this is going to be a bit more of a challenge. We've got less than 10 minutes plus 1 lap of this race remaining. So, for the second time in this 11th round of TCR Europe, we have a safety car out on track. That is our race leader, Jean Calvinet, who was telling me yesterday that at places like the Hungaroring, the Audis just weren't in it because of the nature of the track. They knew that they would be quick here in Monza. Now this is the lunge by Borkovic up the inside of Tashi, just squirreling under braking, but no, indeed, Dusan picks his moment well. Big smile from Adriana. So, good news, but for Target Competition, it's been a bit of a frustrating weekend. They're running 4 cars this weekend. They're also looking after Peter Turting in the Autodis Racing by Piro Sports Hyundai. Makes sense, I guess, for all 4 of the Hyundais to run under the same banner. But Rhys Barr, we've hardly seen. He's currently P18 in the number 8 car. He had to have an engine change after qualifying, and Barberini's still in that car, but seems to be drumming his fingers against the windowsill. So we could be in for a few more minutes behind the safety car as the clock steadily ticks down. Jean Calvinet will be happy enough, as will Mikel Azcona. Files, Potti, Borkovic, Tashi, Comini, Turting, Paulsen, Muller is your top 10. And you have to say, the Subarus are having no luck whatsoever. The technical issues that the cars have had since their first appearance have been frustrating. They both appear here in Italy, and one of them is already out with, hopefully, cosmetic damage, and can come back out tomorrow. So a good mix of car brands as well in the top order. 5 different brands in the top 5 currently. Venet in an Audi, Azcona in a Cupra, Files in a Honda, Potti in a Volkswagen, and Borkovic in a Hyundai. Okay, let's just recap then while we've got the safety car out on track. That was the fairly uneventful start, although the first chicane was a little more disorganized, I think it's fair to say. Cars taking to the escape road, cars across the grass, but no major damage done. Although having said that, I was looking at the front of, I think it's Stefanovski's car, if we see him in the background. It did look like there was, oh no, indeed, it's just the colouring of the bumper. It did look like there was something missing on the car. As you were, Danny Nage going off at the first Lesmo. keeps going. But Danny Nage was soon in the pits. And this was our first major incident of the race where Benjamin Lessen locks up big time, coming down into the parabolica and into the tyre barrier. That was the first safety car intervention, and we're currently on the second. 2 cars off, and as soon as the second of those cars, there it is removed. It's Jose Manuel Sapag in the Cupra in the background there, and the car that's just being recovered, Cosimo Barberini in the Race Republic NOS Racing Subaru WRX STI. So, waiting then for the timing screen to tell me that the safety car will be coming in shortly. Lights still on at the moment, but indeed the safety car will be coming in this lap. So, good news, we'll be racing once again very shortly with just over 5 minutes plus a lap of this race remaining. We still have a fight on our hands. Jean-Carl Venet should surely be heading off into the distance now, but Mikael Azcona is right with him. Files, though, right on Azcona's back bumper. Potty is holding Dusan Borkovic at bay, and then it's Tashi ahead of Comini, Turting, Paulsen, and Jens Renault Muller. The guys from Cupra Racing keeping their fingers crossed, watching the timing screens in the pit lane. So Taylor ahead of Baldan, and he, I suspect, will be pleased with that. Ollie Taylor currently 14th, Nicola Baldan 15th. Baldan on home turf, remember. Martin Rieber is currently P16, Stefanovski is 17, Reese Barr is still 18th. Altoe in the DSG Audi, the sole DSG car. No Maribo Coppens here in Monza, and so Giovanni Altoe is the sole DSG entrant, and Davidovski will round off the top 20. 22 of the original 28 entries still running. 4 minutes then left on the clock as the cars come round the parabolica, hammer down as they head up towards the green flag. We're racing once again. The cars using every inch of the track. So, green flag's waving. We're racing once again here in Monza. Jean-Carl Venet, Mikael Azcona, Josh Files virtually together as they head down the start-finish straight. Venet holds on. So it's still Venet, Azcona, Files, Potty, Borkovic, Tashi, Comini, Turting. Oh, as Giovanardi thumps across the curbs, and there's no love lost between those two. Fabrizio Giovanardi in the Alfa Romeo and Francisco Abreu in the Peugeot, bumping and banging on the exit to the chicane. Abreu has the line through the long right-hander, the Curva Grande. They come up to the second chicane, and both Peter Turting and Stian Paulsen, I think, thumping across the curbs there. Lights flashing, somebody's not happy. And I think Turting having a go at Comini, so that's the scrap for 7th. So there's our top 5, top 6 coming through then. Down into the Ascari chicane. And Turting just taking a look up. And there's contact, I think, between Turting and Comini. Or is it just Comini's slightly wild driving style, throwing the car across those curbs? But certainly Comini defending hard from Turting with Stian Paulsen in close attendance. That's the scrap for 7th, 8th and 9th. And indeed, there's damage to the front left of Turting's car. Comini still holding on, but Paulsen sensing an opportunity going up the inside. Stian Paulsen takes the position away from Peter Turting as they go onto the start-finish straight. This battle isn't decided yet. So a drag race then down towards the chicane. Peter Turting not giving an inch. Stian Paulsen, though, has the line. Who's going to win this battle of bravery? Hard onto the brakes then for this right-left chicane, and Turting retakes the position, but indeed goes straight on at the chicane. Outbraked himself And so not only does he lose the position, which he briefly gained, but Jens Renaud Muller also went past, so Terting drops to 10th. Now, this is the start of it all. There's contact there, I think. Now, pretty obviously there was contact between Peter Terting and Stefano Camini. And then coming down to the chicane, contact again, but I think that was a very risky late braking maneuver from Peter Terting, and it didn't come off. So Terting runs wide, bodywork flailing slightly on the Hyundai, and Paulsen thumping the curbs as Moller also goes through. So, down to the Ascari chicane for the penultimate time. As we see once again, Giovanardi in the middle of the action. I think contact with Muller, who takes to the gravel. Now, will the stewards be taking a look at that? They certainly looked at the incidents at turn 1 on lap 1, but they've decided no further action against anybody, all racing incidents. So Terting now ahead of Giovanardi. Giovanardi up into the points, so he's up into 9th. Terting's ahead of him in 8th. Moller having dropped back to 10th because of that incident. Now this is the moment. A tap, I think. Moller just gets it sideways and he's through into the gravel as they go through the Ascari chicane. The slightest of touches as we see our race leader, who is now on the final lap. The clock has stopped, so this is the +1 lap at the end of normal time. And that's one of the target cars, again having cut the chicane, as Giovanardi now having a go at Terting for 8th. And it's Chris Richard this time who makes contact with the Peugeot of Abreu. So a gap now emerging between Jean Calvinet and Mikael Azcona. Files is still at 3rd position, ahead of Potti and ahead of Borkovic. What can Borkovic do on this final lap? He desperately needs the points with his great rival for the championship, Azcona, 3 places ahead of him on the leaderboard. And the contact between Giovanardi and Moller is under investigation. Moller's toppled all the way back down to 18th place. But that's of no consequence to the man coming towards the camera at the moment, Jean Calvinet, doing what he had to. Pole position and on course for a win in this first race here in Monza for the Audi RS3 LMS. And the 25 points for victory will do very nicely, thank you very much. Mikael Azcona runs very wide on the exit to Parabolica, but they head up towards the checkered flag. The flag waves. Mikael Azcona will be happy with 2nd place, which is what he told me early on, but Jean Calvinet will be delighted with a job done. So, 1st place for Jean Calvinet. Big smiles in the Lukoil Leopard team. The win then for Venet, 2nd for Azcona. Files holds on to 3rd ahead of Potti. Borkovic, a frustrated Dusan Borkovic, is 5th ahead of Tashi, Camini, Giovanardi, Terting, and Stian Paulsen. And that's your top 10. Konstantin from Lukoil in Russia has made the journey to Monza, and a good decision, I think, because he's there to see his man, Jean Calvinet, in the Lukoil Leopard Racing Audi RS3 LMS, takes the victory and the 25 points, flashing the lights, goes through the 2nd chicane to pick up debris, which is all in the game, making sure that they pass the ride height. I think that's a little extreme from Azcona. So, several contacts under investigation. So the Abreu and Chris Richard contact that we saw going into the chicane is also now under investigation, as is the touch we saw earlier on between Giovanardi and Jens Renaud Muller. So that will all be decided after the race, but there's no denying the winner. Josh Files seems happy enough with a podium finish. But really, with the positions as they are, Josh Files came to Italy in 7th place in the championship, something like 19 points behind Venet. So Files knows that his chances of the driver's title are over, and so he's in a when he's in a position to do so, I'm sure he'll help Tashi. But on this occasion, Files 3rd, Tashi 6th, so nothing they could do about it. Congratulations from the marshals, and our thanks to them as ever for the work that they do. A little bit of work for them in this first race at Monza, but thankfully not too much. And that man, Fabrizio Giovanardi, a familiar name to touring car fans, right the way through from, I suppose, his early days. He's done F3, done F3000, but it's touring cars he's best known for in Italy, Spain, German, European champion 3 times, British champion twice, currently doing WTCR, and a guest appearance here in Italy as Jean-Carl Venet pulls into the winner's position. Big cheers, out he gets. Big smile and a thumbs up for the camera. He'll go over to see the team. We'll catch up with him very shortly. But look at that position with the driver's points. Azcona came to Italy 2 points behind Borkovic. He's now 10 ahead. And Venet has catapulted himself up into 3rd. Now 24 points down on Borkovic. But with 25 points for a win, 5 for pole position, we still have 80 points available from this TCR Europe season. So Azcona getting congratulated by a delighted Jaime Puig. Team seem quite happy as well. And Azcona, as I keep pointing out, has a habit of finishing 2nd in championships, being denied the championship titles in the last few years. Can he win TCR Europe this year? But let's head down to the pit lane. Alfredo Filippone is with our race winner.
Jean-Carl Venet, great win. It was a tough battle today, yeah?
A really poor start, to be honest. I just changed the setup of the clutch on the pre-grid, just to make sure that to be a little bit safe, and I didn't want to burn the clutch like I did in the previous race in WTCC. So that was a mistake, let's say. Bad start, but then yeah, just had to be patient, and we knew that the car was quicker than the other one. And no, it's good win. I'm really happy for Leopard, for Lukoil, Audi, of course, and yeah, I mean, good battle with Mikel. Obviously, he's really consistent, and except if he's unlucky or making mistakes, I think it's going to be tough for the title. But no, the challenge of the weekend is a double win. We have 1 pole, 1 win. Let's work hard tomorrow.
There is still hope for that final battle.
Yeah, we'll see. Just keep focus on winning tomorrow, and we'll see what the other doing. But to be honest, I mean, they're really consistent, doing a great job, making no mistakes. So I think it's going to be tough.
Thank you. Enjoy the moment for the time being.
Okay. Podio.
And so an honest Jean-Carl Venet saying that maybe he didn't do the right thing by winding off the launch system or the clutch system on the car, but never mind, he still takes the win from Mikel Azcona by just over half a second. Files also on the podium ahead of Potti, Borkovic, Tashi, Comini, Giovanardi, Peter Turting and Stian Paulsen. That's your top 10, and those are our points finishers. Outside the points, and unlucky, Ollie Taylor from the UK, Nicola Baldan from Italy, Chris Richard, Francisco Abreu, Stefanovski, Rieber, Barr, Muller, Altoe and Davidovski. And in terms of finishers, we only had 22 of the 26. Russo and Capillari in the Volkswagen at the final of the finishers. So 6 non-finishers here, including that man, Benjamin Lessen. Penny for your thoughts, Benny. But another race tomorrow, and Jean-Carl Venet has already told us that he is looking for win number 2 for the weekend. 34 points down now on Azcona, but 25 more available from the race tomorrow. Borkovic then 10 behind, so the pressure on Dusan. Danny Nage, what on earth happened to Danny? We'll find out later on, drops to 4th. And I think really it's down to those top 3, top 4 maybe for the Drivers' Championship in 2018. So that's the drivers' points position. Let's just remind ourselves of some of the highlights from race 1 here at Monza. That was the story of race 1 here in Monza. But while you've been watching the highlights, my timing screen has just come up with the fact that car 25 is under investigation for turn 1, lap 1. And car 25 just happens to be Mikel Azcona. So what's going to happen? Will there be any action taken by the stewards after the race? I don't remember any incident involving Azcona in turn 1, lap 1. He was fairly and squarely ahead of Jean-Carl Venet, as we will get the national anthem, the Marseillaise, for our winning driver here in Monza. So on the podium then, our top 3, together with JK's race engineer, representing Leopard Lukoil. And on the left there, you see Giovanni Altoe, who will get the trophy for the DSG. And I think it's fair to say that Giovanni's pretty much running away with that particular battle, which will be decided, like the others, in Barcelona at the end of October. So Mikel Azcona kisses the second-place trophy, and his fan club have made the trip here to Monza. Third place for Josh Files, and I think he'll be more than happy with that, judging by the big smile, saying because the car was on the rev limiter coming down the start-finish straight. DSG trophy then. Whoops, careful, Giovanni. And so everybody together then for the obligatory photo session, which will be on a social media site near you very soon. And then no race again tonight, so possibly a little bit of champagne spraying. JK's engineer disappearing as Azcona gives it large, and JK savors the taste of champagne. Congratulations to Leopard Lukoil, to Audi, and to Jean-Carl Venet. Winners here in Monza for this 11th round of the 2018 TCR Europe Series. And And the result exactly what JK needed to get his championship hopes back on track. Is he on course for the maximum 55 points, I wonder? Already 5 points for pole position. Now 25 points for that race victory. Another 25 points on offer tomorrow. And Vinay knows that because of the circuit and the fact that it suits the Audi so well, this is his best chance to grab as many points as he can before the season finale in Barcelona. So then that was race 1 here at Monza at the Temple of Speed. We'll see you tomorrow lunchtime for race 2. See you then. Bye-bye.